Welcome back, everyone, to the book versus. Today we're looking at The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Graham. Another one of those beloved, kids' books still being adapted into movies and cartoons and live stage plays and all the rest, even to this day. Now, just to hurry up and get into it, as with all books that are in public domain, of course, there's that absolutely monumental amount of film adaptations and cartoons and all the rest, like I had just mentioned. So if that's the case, which one's the best? Well, according to the internet, it's the 1995 made-for-TV cartoon movie called, Wind in the Willows. I'm positive that I must have seen this thing at some point in my life, but I couldn't for the life of me remember anything from it. But yeah, it's a well-regarded take on the classic writings, with plenty of internet folks having fond memories of it. Now, before moving on, a bit of a theme for this book versus is going to be, when I read the Wind in the Willows book, I found it to be not so much as like an overarching super story, but rather a lot of like little tidbits of mini stories scattered throughout of it, right? With the mild story overall kind of like trying to glue everything together. So I am concerned about how a 70-minute made-for-TV cartoon movie could possibly get any degree of justice in the book, right? When there's so much little stories in it. Oh, well, look at that. There just happens to be a TV series from 1984 to 1988. 52 glorious episodes of sitting around talking about the river or watching Mr. Toad blowing up a car. Well, surely with 52 episodes to work with, they'll surely be able to fit everything in from the book into it, right? So if that's the case, then we got the original book, obviously. We have the well-regarded TV movie, and then the TV series over here, right? So which of the three is the best? Well, there's only one way to find out. Of course, and that's to move on to... So the 1984 edition, yes, it is a TV series. Like I said, there's like 50 episodes or whatever. However, it does open up with a movie, which conveniently enough is actually a very similar length to the TV cartoon. So that does give me a good basis to kind of compare the two right off the hop. However, don't worry, I am going to be definitely taking into account the idea that it has all these extra episodes to work with when compared to the standalone TV movie. So as the two movies begin, I immediately notice a stark difference. The animated cartoon movie has a much faster, more animated look and feel to it, right? The characters are running and jumping a lot more, while the stop motion animation's way slower, relaxed. Let's take it easy. Now, you can't blame this on the two different mediums. I've watched more than a few stop motion animated shows and cartoons, what have you, that have had lots of quick cuts and jumps and the rest of it. Like, this was a choice that the animators or the writers or the producer, whatever, made in order to make the stop motion Wind in the Willows look and move like this. So yeah, this sets a precedence between the two of them right off the hop, right? Now, in the book, the overall narrative is very relaxed, very slow-moving, very lackadaisy, like, if you will. There are points of action in it, yes, of course, such as the Battle of Toad Hall. However, for the most part, it consists a lot of just simply Mr. Mole, the Water Rat, hanging out, sitting down on the riverbank, just casually talking and observing things on the river. So to me, this made the 84 series seem a lot more akin to the book. Like, it had the same feel to the book when compared to the faster moving cartoon. But I can understand why it feels like this, right? All right, so let's play pretend here for a second. You were told you got to make a Wind in the Willows movie adaptation. You only have 70 minutes to work with. Most people, when they look at this, they'll say, okay, that's fine. I'm going to make the movie. I'm going to base it heavily on Mr. Toad. Mr. Toad, he has the most action. He has the most adventures in it. And this is what you'll very commonly see in a lot of the different cartoons and live action movies and even stage plays and whatnot. Mr. Toad always plays a huge role in them. And I do begrudgingly understand why they choose this, right? A lot of the kids, they want something, especially these days, a lot more faster paced action. Not to say the Wind in the Willows is an action book, but you know what I mean. There's more things going on when you get to Mr. Toad's story rather than the Mole, the Water Rat, and the Badger and all the rest of them. Now, like I just mentioned, though, the original book here, right, consists of a lot of like little mini stories scattered throughout it. And that, I realize, is why it is the cartoon movie seems to move so quickly. That being because the 95 cartoon tried to cram as much as the book as they could into that 77-minute whatever long movie that they had to work with. As an example, I was shocked when the 95 cartoon actually took the time to address one of my favorite chapters when the Water Rat was struck with wanderlust and wanted to leave. But then this created a problem. Now, as someone who read the book, obviously, right, I understood why the Water Rat wanted to go. So as the 95 cartoon narrated and talked about it and whatnot, I had a deeper understanding of what was actually going on with the Water Rat. In the book, the Water Rat meets actually another rat who is a sailor, and he's been more older and grizzled, and the Water Rat sits him down, and they spend all afternoon, Water Rat listening to this other traveled rat just speak about all these exotic places and lands and whatnot, about all the incredible travels and adventures he's had. And by the time this traveling rat actually leaves, that is when the Water Rat, with tales of, once again, travel and adventure going through his mind, in a trance, packs up his bags without telling anybody, including Mr. Bull, and just wants to disappear. It's an interesting chapter in the book, and to me it actually builds the Water Rat's character a lot. But with the 95 cartoon, since they were so limited in what they were able to show, they instead condensed it down to just like a migratory instinct, which, yes, that was part of the book. Yes, like the water rat talking to the birds, like, why are you bothering flying south and whatnot. But they completely cut out the extra character.
Their blood, they said, was dancing to a music he could not understand. But they were wrong. He too felt uncontrollable longings stirring within himself to travel.
And to me, that kind of really weakened it. But I'm happy that they had it in the first place, because the 84 version didn't have it. Well, at least in the movie anyway. That's another thing too I'll say, is get used to hearing me say that, because, surprise, surprise, the 84 edition concentrated on Mr. Toad. In fact, as I was watching it, I specifically remember pausing the film and looking like, okay, how far actually are we into the movie when they first started to get Toad's character arc started? It wasn't very far. So basically I just went, well, that's that. We're going to hear about nothing but Toad now, which was, for the most part, what happened. Mind you, in the 84's defense, since they did concentrate so heavily on Toad, what they did show was a lot more, I'm not going to say book accurate, but more book accurate in details. It's just a shame that they skipped so much of the rest of the book. But hold on, you may be saying to yourself, wait, isn't the 84 a TV series like you said? There's supposed to be dozens of more episodes. Perhaps these episodes fill in the blanks from the rest of the book? And to that I say, probably yes. Why? Because I only got to watch a few episodes before nobody threatened to violently throw herself out the nearest window, because according to her, the show was slow and boring.
Oh. Bother.
Well, based on what I did see, yes, it does appear that the TV series does go over a lot of the missing parts from the book. Each of them getting their own little 22-minute episodes sprinkled out throughout the series, which is perfectly fine. It should be able to comfortably cover most of the stories inside the book. Since, like I went and mentioned, aside from Mr. Toad's arc about him escaping in the Battle of Toad Manor, and I'd argue also when the water rat goes in the wildwood to save Mr. Mole, the original book in a whole is a very slow, relaxed story. Or series of stories, rather. But taking a simple chapter such as looking for the lost otter child and turning it into its own self-condensed little episode does work very well. One last thing I will mention is about the ending of the two movies. I actually did prefer the 95 cartoon a little bit more compared to the 84. And that is because I realized that the 84 one, the actual first episode of the series, went over and fattened up the ending some with, Mr. Toad talking about what happened. While the 95 cartoon, knowing that this is all they got to work with, they gave it a bit more of like a definitive the end. This is be really nitpicking here though. But I wanted to mention it anyway, just because, well, I felt like it. There's no need for me to go into any kind of details here. All three mediums, the characters are presented very similar to one another. They're all done very well. Yes, the 84 series does introduce a few new characters, because, well, it's a series, since they want to expand the cast. But aside from that, they're all great. Nothing to say about it. Let's just move on. So the 84 version has a whopping 52 episodes, right? In order to be able to tell all the stories from the book, and of course, plenty of original stories along the way. While the 95 cartoon, of course, is a self-contained story. And so, like I've mentioned, it tries to get everything into as much as you can. So while the 84 milked the book in its first episode, simply adding almost like DLC story elements from the movie into it, the 95 cartoon is clearly designed to be watched, enjoyed, and forgotten about. So bringing up the book again, I found that each individual chapter made its own nice little self-contained story. And to me, I take this as it was written with the idea that a parent would read a chapter a night to their child. If you do this, then yes, it works superb. All these little stories here and there with a slowly overarching story of Mr. Toad and the automobile going to jail and all the rest. Not that you can't just simply tear through the whole book in an afternoon. It's perfectly fine. It's not like it's a super long story anyway. It's just that I feel that the book pushed the idea of just consuming a little bit a day and slowly enjoying it. Hence why the story is overall a more slower, relaxed story. Just to have a little bit of the days of the wind and the willows and then go on with your own day. It's a kid's book. It's time to read Little Susie and Little Billy their chapter before they go to bed for the night. So of course when I get to this point of the book versus I always declare a winner, right? This is the best one of the two or the three we're looking at. But there's a distinct problem with this one, right? In my opinion, the book is the best of the three. The pacing's great, the stories are superb, and when I finished reading anything, I felt a good sense of satisfaction. I was happy I took the time to read the old stories. Second would be the 84 stop motion series, because I feel that slower pace, it's relaxed, it's able to take its time telling all the stories from the book. There's lots of time for them to develop all the different animal critters and whatnot, even some of the new characters. They seem perfectly fine for what I did see. And then finally and last would be the 95 made-for-TV cartoon movie. Simply because it tried to do the best it could. And it's not bad by any means like that. It's just they only had like 70 minutes to work with. And they tried to cram as much as they possibly could into it. So that's like my 3 right there, right? However, I'm under the impression that if you were to actually get a kid to actually consume all 3 of these meats and ask them, hey, would you like to put them in order, which ones you would like? My gut tells me they'd probably do the opposite. They'd say the 95 to 84 than the book. Just because, once again, the TV cartoon movie is so much more faster paced with fluid motion and all the rest. Since the kids, of course, of these days are going to prioritize the excitement, the adventure over, the more just kicking my feet up and watching the world go by aspect of the 84 and the book versions. Ugh, kids, am I right? But hey, I just wanted to point that out. But for old timers like me who want to know what the best version of The Wind and the Willow is, then yes, you cannot go wrong with the book. Or for all your parents out there who are looking for a nice, simple, easy book to read to your youngest, then yes, The Wind and the Willows is definitely a good one to go with. Thanks for watching. The toad came home. There was a panic in the parlor and howling in the hall. There was crying in the cowshed and shrieking in the stall when the toad came home. When the toad came home, there was smashing in of window and crashing in of door. There was chiving of weasels that fainted on the floor when the toad came home. Bang go the drums. The trumpeters are tooting, the soldiers are saluting, and the cannon they are shooting, and the mortars cars are hooting. As the hero comes, shout hooray!